that up every time, but I also don't want to like be changing it up all the time. But hopefully the lighting is okay. I might try to make it a little darker next time, but we're just gonna roll with it. Let me know if it's obnoxious or annoying in any way. But today we are discussing a serial shooting case, and this case is set in 2006, and specifically on May 30th, 2006, Detective Clark Schwarzkopf gets a call about 3 individuals being shot, all in the Phoenix, Arizona area. All 3 are separate shootings, but with similar details, similar stories. So it wasn't 3 individuals that were shot at the same location. These were all separate events that happened on the same night, May 30th, 2006. So Detective Clark Schwarzkopf, I don't know, I might just call him Detective Clark, that's kind of a long name, but he ends up going and talking to some of these victims because all 3 of these victims survived their attack. So the first victim that Detective Clark talked to was James Hodge, and he was found in his hospital bed with shotgun fragments like all over his back. He said he had just been out walking when he was shot. So next he goes to talk to Miguel Rodriguez, and he was able to tell the detective that he also was just walking down the sidewalk when he was shot. And the third victim that night was Daryl Davies, who took a shotgun blast to his left side, also survived, and he was able to tell the police that he believed the shot came from the inside of a vehicle that sped away immediately afterwards. He was unable, though, to give any details on the vehicle's make, model, or color. He just knows that the shot came from a vehicle. This obviously leaves the Phoenix Police Department with very, very minimal information. They know that 3 people were shot the same night in the same area, but there's no evidence to be working off of. They pretty much know, okay, a shotgun was used in each instance. So that's pretty much all they have. They aren't even certain that these 3 incidents were linked. I think they could make a pretty good assumption that they were linked, but there just wasn't enough to say for sure that they were linked. Less than a month later, okay, so they're like investigating this, going off of nothing, and less than a month later, so June 20th, 2006, Detective Schwarzkopf gets another phone call about 2 more drive-by shootings. Again, separate incidences, separate individuals at different locations near Phoenix were shot, and it could say it was from a car that was passing by. So Frederick Sena was shot at a liquor store, and he was able to like hobble himself over to a nearby hospital after being shot, which is amazing. And the second victim, Tony Long, was shot in his torso. Both of these individuals survived their attack, and the police department is left with minimal to no information. They now know, okay, we have 2 more individuals shot with a shotgun in the Phoenix area that were drive-by random shootings. So we could, again, try to link them back to the other 3, or work under the assumption that they're not linked, which at this point I think the police department had enough reason to believe that these definitely were linked. They were also operating under this sense of doom that this is going to happen again. They have nothing to work off of. They're just waiting until they can get more information, more evidence to work off of. While they continue to investigate, they start to pull old records, old crimes, other drive-by unexplained shootings from the Phoenix area to see did this start in May 2006? Has this been going on before? Different police officers are coming forward forward with these files saying, hey, this was an unexplained shooting, it was a shotgun, and the case is just sitting open. We have no way to figure out who did this. So they're taking all of these unexplained shootings and linking them back and trying to get a timeline, trying to see what is likely to be linked, what's likely to not be linked. And there was a particular shooting in Scottsdale, Arizona, and the victim was Claudia Gutierrez, and she had not survived. This was also a drive-by shotgun shooting, and this same night in Phoenix, there was an unresolved shooting of Kibili Tambodo, who had survived his attack. So all of these files are just being gathered and put together, and this deep dive of unexplained shootings actually brings up a lot of people. And I'm just gonna go through some of what they tried to link back to these unexplained shootings. So in May of 2005 through December of 2005, the following individuals were all killed in an unexplained shotgun shooting. And that's Tony Mendez, Reginald Remillard, David Estrada, Nathaniel Schaffner, Jose Ortiz, and Marco Carrillo. And again, none of these individuals survived unexplained shotgun shootings. There were also another handful of victims that did survive drive-by shootings in this kind of like May to December 2005 time frame. And if you remember, the initial call to Detective Clark was in May of 2006, so it is clear that this individual has been operating for a while, and there is no doubt in the Phoenix Police Department's mind that this is random. It's clear there's a serial shooter in the Phoenix area that is quite literally thrill killing people at random. Given the police department has very, very little evidence to work off of, they tried to work up a MO for this individual, and from the people that have the victims that have survived, they're able to try to piece together as accurate of an MO as they can. And basically they come up with this individual is gunning down pedestrians at random and only at night. And this person is literally driving around, choosing a victim based off of opportunity and ability to escape undetected. So this begs the question, are they working alone? And the police don't believe so. While there is not a shred of evidence saying that there are two individuals doing this, the police really truly believe that these acts would not be able to go undetected for so long if there was not a second person as a lookout, as someone helping them. They believe this wholeheartedly. They are looking for two people. And July 8th, another phone call gets made to Detective Clark Schwarzkopf's phone about two more random unexplained drive-by shootings. The first victim, Gary Begay, had non-life-threatening injuries, and the other victim, Ashley Armenta, was shot in the back of the head. And so Detective Clark is obviously hoping for both victims to survive. Maybe we can get some information out of these victims, but he was not hopeful for Ashley because she was shot in the head. And the detective goes to visit both individuals, and to their surprise, Ashley Armenta was sitting upright in her hospital bed, ready to talk to the police. And she gave a statement about what happened to her, and basically she describes how she was driving with her husband and they ended up getting into an argument. So she got out of the vehicle and decided to walk home, or just walk. And so at this point she's just like walking alone on the sidewalk at night. I don't know why the husband didn't like stay right like next to her and drive right behind her if they had gotten into an argument. I guess that doesn't really matter, but that kind of frustrates me that alone at night made her the perfect target for this individual or individuals that's committing these thrill kills, basically. And she was their next victim. And when the detective asked if she had a description of the car, if she had anything to give, she did. She was able to give the detective a full description of the car. I'm going to go ahead and put a picture up of the car, which she described as a 2000 Toyota Camry, a light blue 2000 Toyota Camry. So that is the car that Ashley Armenta was able to describe to detectives. And this is obviously such a huge turning point for this investigation for police, because they at no point had any sort of description of a vehicle. So now they can move forward with this piece of information, and the police department gathered a team to go out and patrol the streets. They know this individual works at night, so they have unmarked cars literally prowling for a 2000 Toyota Camry that's a light blue color. And I think they probably are working under the assumption that maybe it's not exact, maybe it is like a silver 2005 Toyota Camry, but they are looking out for a car that's similar to that description and hoping to find the perpetrator or perpetrators of these crimes. After about a week of them just prowling the streets for this Toyota Camry, nothing was found. Not a single officer found anything, any substantial leads to go off of. But where you would normally see a case like this just go ice cold, because obviously we can't keep officers on the street forever, especially like a large sum of them, a major lead was brought forward by an individual named Ron, who said one of his buddies was bragging about these shootings that were happening, and Ron said his friend was calling them recreational shootings. So while the police they were already working under the assumption that these are thrill kills, these are people going out and again recreationally shooting them, it just confirmed their belief in that. And this individual, Ron, was able to give a name, which again, massive for this investigation. So this name that was given is Sammy Dietman, and it ended up being incredibly hard for police to get in touch with Sam Dietman. I don't know if that's because he didn't have a record. I guess I don't know why. Like, you'd think even like Google, you're able to find so many people if you have a first and last name, as well as a city or like a location. But I guess it was really, really hard for them to get in touch with Sam. And Ron even didn't know where Sam was living at the time. So basically, police and Ron just left it as Ron was going to work to try to get a phone number or an address for police, and the police were just going to continue their investigation and hope that Ron gets back to them as soon as possible. Because of how hard it was to find Sam, like a decent chunk of time passed between them having this information from Ron about Sam and the next shooting. July 11th, Michael Cordray survives a drive-by shooting. July 22nd, Raul Garcia survives a drive-by shooting. July 30th, Robin Blasnek is killed in a drive-by shooting. These three incidents, I don't believe were all known by police. From what I was researching, Robin Blasnek's was the main murder that caught the attention of police. Some of these murders that some of these shootings that I'm talking about were discovered after the fact. Robin's murder was kind of like another jump start for this case, even though it was just 10-20 days in time. This really hit Detective Schwarzkopf really hard because they knew they had had such a major lead with the name Sam Dietman. But when he got the call that Robin Blasnick was shot and did not survive her injuries, it put this huge just damper on the investigation, because they were not able to investigate the lead of Sam Dietman yet. And Ron ended up seeing Robin's murder on the news, and he ended up reaching out again and saying, hey, I talked to Sam, we're gonna meet up for some drinks, like I feel really bad I wasn't able to do this and get this organized sooner. But that's what ends up happening, and so a surveillance team was arranged so that they could get every word that comes out of Sam's mouth. They could follow him, they could do everything in their power to learn everything they can about Sam Dietman. So on the night that Ron and Sam were gonna meet at like a lounge for some drinks, the surveillance team pulls up to the same lounge, and guess what they see? A 2000 light blue Toyota Camry. And if they weren't already set on Sam being their perpetrator, they were now. All they had before this was Ron saying, my friend talked about shooting these people, but we hear people come forward all the time saying that they did something that they didn't. So this wasn't much, but as soon as they saw that light blue Toyota Camry, everything changed. Sam, number one suspect. And so they made sure to have a police officer get a tracking device put on this vehicle, and they also got to work trying to figure out like running the plates and figuring out more about this vehicle. And once the plates were ran, a new lovely piece of information came to light. This Toyota Camry was not owned by Sam Dietman. In fact, it was owned by someone named Dale Hausner. And so now they run Dale Hausner's name into their system, and they really don't get much. They're like, okay, he doesn't really fit the bill as for someone who should have these violent tendencies, but clearly he's linked to this car because he owns this car, and if Sam is driving this car, then he's clearly close with Dale. And this whole time, police were so wholeheartedly believing there were two individuals at work here. And guess what? Now they have two names that are linked to a 2000 light blue Toyota Camry. I'm gonna go ahead and put up both images, two pictures of each person, Dale Hausner and Sam Dietman, right now, so you can take a look at them. I don't think much information came from Ron and Sam getting drinks, so they ended up parting ways, and Sam goes and gets back in his car, and the police just tail him. He ends up meeting, I think, at like a casino or somewhere with Dale, and they see them like messing around with some stuff in the bag. Like there's a large bag. Detectives say that the bag looked like it could definitely be big enough to hold a shotgun, so they're like just being a little weird and suspicious. They're bringing the bag into the car, and both of them get into the car and drive off. Of course, the police continue to tail these two individuals. Police notice pretty much immediately that they are just driving at random. Like, to explain it, it was almost like they were just like going out for a scenic drive, and it matched what you would expect someone who is looking for a thrill kill to go out and find someone at random. So now they're getting all these little bits of information, and then put that on top of how they are acting, what they're doing when they're driving. They are absolutely not going to let this car out of their sight. They don't want somebody else to be hurt. They do not want to blow their cover. They want to stay under the radar. So they do a really, really good job of having one car follow them, and then that car turns off at the same time another car two ended up driving back to an apartment and parked the car, went inside together. Because of the gravity of the situation, police stay at the apartment complex and make sure that they don't leave again. And they don't leave again that night. The Phoenix Police Department begin building a case against Dale and Sam. They still don't have much, especially like physical evidence that can actually be used in a court of law. So they're kind of in this like tight, tough situation. They continue this constant surveillance on the individuals, and some trash was thrown out, and they wanted to treat this as evidence, or they were hoping that there would be evidence in this trash. So they go in and they get the trash and they start looking through it, and the trash contained the following that is considered evidence to some degree, but a paper that contained the name Robin Blasnick with her age, with her date of her murder, a shotgun casing, and a map of Phoenix with blue and red dots that line up exactly where the shootings have occurred. And this is obviously like pretty damning in conjunction with witness testimony about the Toyota Camry and the strange actions of the individual, but there is no hard physical evidence that these individuals aren't just some creepy weirdos obsessed with the drive-by shootings. And that's what the police need to acquire. They need to acquire some of this evidence, this physical hard evidence that can be used to actually convict them. They're in a very tough situation where these individuals are clearly very dangerous. It is a public safety issue if they are kept on the streets. Even if they're on constant surveillance, something could still happen. So initially they decided to just keep a tail on them at all times, and then that decision was quickly just changed in the middle of the night to go in and arrest them. And this was actually something that angered Detective Clark, but it ended up panning out for them. So they go and they arrest and begin the interrogation process of Dale and Sam. Detective Clark is the one to interrogate these two individuals. He's not feeling great about the arrest, but he needs to play his cards exactly right to get something out of these interrogations. And so he observes both individuals, and based off of their mannerisms, he decides to talk to Dale Hausner first, because he seems like the type that might crack just based off of how he's sitting and what he's doing. And so I'm going to insert a clip of the interrogation right now.
Yeah, I'm Detective Splitscott. I'm with the Phoenix Police Department. I asked you brought down today. I have some questions I have to ask you about some stuff, okay? Before we do...
Dale is really open about his life, his guns, his love for hunting, and even the fact that he knows that there's a serial shooter. And Detective Clark decides to lie to him and tell him that Sam is actually saying some incriminating things about Dale, that Dale was the one carrying out these shootings. And Dale is quick to say, well, he's not protecting anyone, and I'll put in a little clip of that as well.
It's very important that you continue to be honest with me about Sam. I know you guys are friends.
No, we're buds, but man, he killed 85 people, man.
Well, he didn't kill 85.
I'm just saying, but if he killed however many people he killed or shot or whatever, that's on him, that's not on me. So I'm not protecting anybody, so.
Dale goes on to say that he has never shot anybody in his life. So at this point, Detective Clark pulls out the map that they found. You can see his demeanor shift, like he gets nervous, he kind of like shrinks in a little bit, but he at that point shuts down. He doesn't want to talk anymore. So Detective Clark moves on to Sam. So I'm going to insert a little clip here.
Do you have any idea why you're here? Yeah, it would be the serial shooter case.
So that's obviously a major difference between Sam and Dale, and Detective Clark was not expecting that whatsoever. When asked why why he would say or think that. He says it's because he knows the guy that's been doing it, rather that he's been staying with the guy that's been doing it. He goes on to explain how Dale chuckles after he shoots people, and he implies that he himself, that Sam, has quite a bit less involvement in the shootings, that he's more of the lookout, that Dale's the one that does the shootings, he's the one that gets the thrill out of it. Ultimately comes out that Sam actually did play a larger role in these shootings than he was willing to admit in this interrogation. He took part in shooting people, and he murdered individuals, as well as shot some of his victims that survived. And they both go to trial. They end up with Sam's confession, they both end up getting convicted, which is a major win. And not only this, but no shootings were happening when these two were in custody, so that was another layer that they could use in court. But Sam Dietman was convicted of 2 murders and sentenced to life without parole. Dale was convicted of 6 murders, but in 2013 took his own life on death row. I'd like to take a moment to rename all of the victims whose lives were taken out of these pure acts of evil. And those individuals are Tony Mendez, Reginald Remillard, David Estrada, Nathaniel Schaffner, Jose Ortiz, Marco Carrillo, Claudia Gutierrez, and Robin Blaznik. It's so sickening that these people were literally just innocently walking the streets and have their lives taken from them, and then all the other people too who were walking down the sidewalk and just shot. They're gonna live with that for, like, you're gonna be nervous anytime you're out in public to have that happen to you in your life. Like, you're never gonna be the same. So thank goodness that Ron was able to come forward, because if Ron was a crappy person, he could have kept that information about Sam and just never came forward. So thank goodness Ron came forward and we were able to get these monsters off the street. Thank goodness that Ashley survived and was able to give them a vehicle description. And I just keep coming back to, what if Ron didn't come forward? How many more people would have not made it or been a victim of Dale and Sam? So thank you, Ron, so much. And that is all that I have for you. And like I said, Sam is serving a life sentence. Dale, I believe, ended up taking some sort of pills. I'm not sure how he had access to that, but and committed suicide on death row. So that's all I have for you guys. I hope you have